Summary. Slowly but steadily, the two companions make progress towards their destination, overcoming obstacles along the way. Chapter 5, Body Heat. Hunter couldn't pretend not to find the situations with the spear-stealing worms at least a little funny, very annoying, but also kind of funny. Survivor obviously found it funnier than he did either way, and though he tried to stifle his laughter, he did let a couple small chuckles slip. The ground rumbled as the rain approached, but there was a shelter right outside the gate, so the slugcats could crawl in at a leisurely pace and settle down inside the shelter with no risk of getting rained out. Survivor let out a deep sigh of relief as he put his back against one of the walls of the shelter and slid down to a sitting position. Hunter walked up next to him and sat down as well. His head pounded, and he winced slightly. Headaches had very recently become another annoyance to add to his growing list of symptoms. He reached up and rubbed his temples. He could definitely do with a distraction right about now. He reached for a spear from his back, only to remember the situation with the worms and frown at himself. Hunter also only now remembered that both he and Survivor were half soaked in water, and he had to fight to suppress his shivers. Shelters were never particularly warm, and being wet usually meant trying to fall asleep while shivering from the cold. Never a lot of fun, but he had grown used to the cold when he had been back with his creator. Hunter hummed to himself, deep in thought. There was always the risk of hypothermia. He had once almost suffered its ill effects when he had hibernated while wet, having been caught out by the rain. He cringed slightly as he remembered he'd almost lost a big part of his tail to the frostbite, moving it into his lap to study the old and scarred-over wound the incident had made. Hunter glanced over to Survivor to see how he was dealing with the cold. Survivor was also trying to suppress his shivers, but it wasn't working as well as Hunter's attempts. He was curled into himself, hugging his legs. "Are you cold?" Hunter asked, trying to keep the worry in his tone to a minimum. The white slugcat glanced at him for a moment before nodding and closing his eyes. "Why yeah, but it's fine. I'm used to it." Hunter nodded slowly back. Just because he was used to it didn't mean he should have to suffer through a cold hibernation. Neither should he, for that matter. "Maybe we can dry up somehow," he thought, maybe by making use of a piece of cloth or something? Hunter took a moment to look around the empty shelter. How would he even do that? There was nothing around to use. Shelters weren't exactly built with comfort in mind. Then why not just share body heat? Hunter felt his heart leap into his throat at his traitorous brain's suggestion. Why the hell was that the first thing his mind jumped to? He noticed Survivor glancing over at him with a confused look, noticing the way he suddenly stilled. It's just like Dad. No significant harassment mentioned during his lessons that sharing body heat with other slugcats is customary to stay warm during hibernation. Why was that the one and only thing Hunter could remember from his lessons on slugcat traditions and interactions? And why could he only remember the lesson right now? Because it's important for survival, to stave off hypothermia, and to build trust between slugcats. His brain supplied it helpfully. Hunter groaned in frustration and covered his face with his paws. Survivor suddenly put a paw on his shoulder, making Hunter jump and turn quickly towards the other slugcat. Survivor instantly let his shoulder go, but Hunter could still feel the remnants of warmth from where the paw touched. His shoulder felt hot. Hunter, are you okay?" "What's wrong?" Survivor asked, a clear worry in his voice. He was still trembling like a leaf in the wind, which helped Hunter strengthen his resolve for his coming actions. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Okay, we're doing this." After another moment of hesitation, Hunter reached out and put his paws on Survivor's shoulders. If Survivor had looked confused before, it was nothing compared to the expression he had now. Hunter slowly and gently, as to not frighten or hurt the other slugcat, pushed down on Survivor's shoulders. This way, the white slugcat was gently coaxed into lowering itself to the ground. After he was fully settled on the floor of the shelter, Survivor spoke again. "Hunter, what dash?" Before he could finish his sentence, Hunter got down low and curled around him protectively. He moved slowly to ensure Survivor could back out of the situation if it got too uncomfortable for him. Survivor didn't move, but he did sputter confusedly and blush very hard. He settled down after a while, though his face still held a color akin to a ripe tomato. Hunter shuddered slightly at the contact between them. He'd never been this close to one of his own before. It felt very nice despite the way his skin burned as he brushed against Survivor's. "It's to avoid hypothermia," Hunter stated it matter-of-factly. He curled tighter around Survivor instinctively. It was way warmer and more comfortable this way, and Survivor had completely stopped his shivering too. He felt a rumbling all over his body, and it took him embarrassingly long to realize the vibrating sound was coming from him. Oh, he was purring. A normal thing for slug cats to do when overwhelmed with happy feelings, for example, contentment. Hunter huffed quietly. "Thanks, brain." Oh. Survivor stilled completely for a moment before nuzzling into Hunter's warm fur and purring back. "Thank you." He said it drowsily. Despite himself, Hunter allowed himself to smile slightly. "Of course." He closed his eyes. "Sleep well, Survivor." "You too, Hunter." The next cycle, Survivor awoke feeling more comfortable and refreshed than he had in many cycles. He cuddled close to Hunter, feeling warm and safe. The last time Survivor remembered huddling around for heat was when he was back with his colony, but that had been a long time ago. Before he could keep reminiscing, Hunter woke up, turning towards him and giving him a small nod of acknowledgement. "Are you ready to keep moving?" Survivor smiled and nodded in response. After leaving the shelter, the slug cats made haste for the next gate. They were close to the water now, as evident by all the murky and polluted water in this region. If Survivor remembered correctly, they would just have to pass through one more gate and they'd arrive in the region that contained the metal box, where Hunter's green neuron thing was supposed to be delivered. Hunter was very dismayed to find the rest of the region populated with more of the spear-stealing worms, and Survivor had to stop him from picking up a nearby spear to spear one. He knew from experience that they only got more annoying if they were angry. It was better to just try to steal the spear back before they retreated. Easier said than done, of course. Though he didn't regret giving Hunter the tip when, after a few failed attempts at this, Hunter managed to steal his spear back from one and proceeded to laugh mockingly at the submerged worm, followed by 3 backflips in a row in celebration. He quickly regained his composure when he noticed Survivor looking at him humorously and gave him a glare that seemed to say, "Not a word about this to anyone." Survivor had chuckled lightheartedly and kept walking, ignoring Hunter's indignant huff of offense. There weren't many dangerous creatures around, unless the red leeches counted. Though, like the worms, they were more of an annoyance. At least they weren't the blue kind, not yet anyway. The red ones were kind of weak. They could barely hold on as long as you kept your head above the water and kept swimming, and didn't get swarmed by like a million. Survivor was just happy they didn't need to dive under the murky depths at any point as they made their way through the garbage region, as Hunter lovingly had named it. Unsurprisingly, it didn't take too long until they spotted scavengers either. They were very prominent in this region, after all. Survivor knew they'd have to go through a toll later on, but as long as payment was handed over, the toll scavengers weren't too bad. Hunter didn't seem to like the scavengers too much. He would scowl and glare in their general direction anytime he saw any. Luckily, the scavengers were often spotted in the distance, and if they noticed Hunter's angry stare-downs, they didn't pay it much mind. Eventually, Survivor let out a sigh of relief as he remembered they were about halfway through the horrible region, and close to a shelter no less. As they climbed to a small island in the middle of a small lake of water, he pointed out the pipe further away to Hunter. "Just a couple more pipes, and we'll reach a shelter, Hunter." Hunter nodded. Still walking forward, he glanced up at the sky. Perfect timing, the clouds are gathering. Survivor looked up and hummed in agreement before stopping as he spotted something moving in the crevice above them. He squinted his eyes to get a better look, feeling his heart drop to his stomach as he saw cyan-colored patterns light up in the dark above. Hunter noticed he'd stopped and turned around, looking confused. However, he quickly noticed his fearful look and pulled a spear from his back. Suddenly, the shapes moved as 2 pairs of jaws appeared out of the darkness. "Hunter, look out!" Survivor shouted as the lizards hissed and suddenly propelled themselves downward, towards the slug cats. Hunter glanced up just in time to see a pair of jaws heading for him. In a panic, he threw his spear before throwing himself backwards. The cyan lizard hit the ground in front of him, his spear having bounced harmlessly off the creature's armored head. He scrambled backwards as the beast turned towards him, seeing Survivor run the other way with another lizard in tow. This isn't good, Hunter thought as he jumped to the side, narrowly avoiding the lizard launching itself towards him. Seeing no other option, he turned tail and jumped into the water surrounding the island they were on. The lizard hissed and jumped in after him as Hunter tried to scan his surroundings for anything to use as a weapon. Finally, his eyes landed on a metal stick lodged in the ground on another, smaller island. He swam quickly towards it, clambering onto the island and pulling the piece of metal out of the ground. Hunter heard another hiss and a rush of steam and turned around just in time to see the lizard barreling towards him, mouth open and ready to swallow him whole. He was knocked to the ground and landed hard on his back, the air getting pushed out of him and his pounding headache getting worse as his brain rattled around in his skull. In desperation, he thrust the spear forward in a last-ditch effort to defend himself. He only just managed to block the advance of the lizard's jaws by jamming the metal stick into its mouth, hitting the roof of the lizard's head. Unfortunately, his weapon wasn't sharp enough to pierce all the way through and do any real damage, so all it really did was piss the lizard off. His arm shook with effort, and Hunter grunted as he tried to push the lizard off himself using the spear, but it was useless. Even if Hunter had been made stronger than the average slug cat, he couldn't beat a much larger beast like this in a match of strength. He could feel his arms start to give out as the lizard kept pushing against him, its jaws getting closer by the second. Hunter winced in pain as he felt the lizard's claws tear into his arm as it struggled to gain leverage to properly angle its jaws to bite him. He could hear his weapon creaking with effort, and he knew there was no way out of the situation alive. Whimpering, he closed his eyes tight and waited for the snap of jaws as the lizard tore into him, tensing up as he felt the lizard's hot breath against his face and heard it hiss in anticipation of finally catching its prey. That's when he suddenly heard a scream and a loud sound of impact, like metal lodging itself in bone. The weight crushing down on him suddenly turned into complete dead weight, just as Hunter's arms completely gave out. He grunted as the lizard's body slumped on top of him, covering him completely. His so-called spear had fallen out of the lizard's mouth and lay pinned down next to Hunter as he breathed rapidly, trying to catch his breath after the exertion of survival. He heard steps approaching and a worried voice muttering something as the lizard slowly, but surely, was pushed off of him. Hunter tried to help move it, but found his arms too tired to really do anything. As the crushing weight left him, he opened his eyes to see Survivor staring at him worriedly. His face lit up as he saw Hunter was awake, and he helped sit him up. "You're alive." Hunter kept recovering as Survivor rubbed his back comfortingly. Eventually, he turned to look at the corpse of the lizard. It had been speared right through its open mouth, a couple inches from the spot where Hunter had pushed his own weapon into it. Obviously, Survivor had found a much better weapon than he had, or perhaps he had used the spear Hunter had missed during his panic throw? Smiling, he turned back to his savior. "A good kill," he said, nodding approvingly. Survivor's face reddened slightly as he laughed nervously, waving his paw dismissively. It was nothing. You were in danger." Survivor's eyes fell upon Hunter's bleeding arm, and his eyes widened. "Hunter, you're hurt," he yelled fearfully, taking hold of Hunter's arm and fussing over the wound. Hunter gently tried to shake him off. It was a very minor wound and didn't need much worrying over. Survivor paused for a moment before suddenly leaning forward and licking the wound. He started gently cleaning the lacerations, getting rid of the blood that had steadily flowed down Hunter's arm, and stemming the flow. Hunter stood completely still, unsure of what to do other than stare in shock. After a moment, Survivor stopped and backed off, seeming content with the work done. It was only when he turned to look at Hunter's expression that he seemed to realize what he had done. His expression fell, and he slapped both his paws over his mouth. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. Before Hunter could respond in any way, Survivor started waving his arms around wildly, his breathing picking up, and his speech getting too rushed to properly be understood. It was a reflex. Just an instinctual reflex, and I wasn't realizing what I was doing. Survivor. Before I knew it, I just did that. I have no idea why." Survivor. "God, I'm so fucking weird, huh? I don't know why I just did that." Hey, Hunter yelled as he reached out and grabbed Survivor's wrists, forcing him to stop flailing them about. Survivor quieted down and stared at him, still breathing quicker than Hunter would have liked. His eyes are beautiful. I didn't notice that before. Hunter internally thanked his red coloration as he felt himself blush, and his heart felt like it did a backflip in his chest. He shook his head, quieting his mind. He needed to help Survivor calm down. It's okay, Survivor. It's fine, see? I'm not mad. Hunter spoke calmly, loosening his grip on Survivor's wrists but still holding on to them gently. I need you to take deep breaths, okay? Can you do that for me? Survivor nodded and shakily started trying to get his breathing under control. In his first attempt, he choked on the air he breathed in, coughing harshly. It's all right, you're doing good. Survivor kept trying, and despite a few hiccups, he eventually managed to slow his breathing down. Once Hunter was fully sure Survivor's breathing had evened out, he let go of his wrists. You good? Survivor looked him in the eye, smiling gratefully. Yeah, thanks. Hunter laughed quietly. I should really be thanking you, seeing as you saved my life and all. He gestured to the dead lizard at their feet before he realized something. Wait, weren't there two lizards? What happened to the one chasing you? Survivor looked bashful, rubbing the back of their head before gesturing towards the small island in the lake. Hunter looked over and saw the other lizard, speared through with several spears, floating through the water. He laughed again, giving Survivor an amicable, playful pat on the shoulder, a gesture that almost bowled the white slug cat over. When were you planning on telling me you're a certified dragon slayer, huh? Survivor turned to Hunter, giving him a playful glare. What's the big deal? You kill lizards all the time. Why is it so shocking that I can do the same? He turned fully to Hunter, who had crouched down next to the lizard corpse to feast, standing tall and puffing his chest out proudly in a display of confidence. That's cute. Hunter blushed again as he looked away and started busying himself with his meal, thinking of a response. Once he felt satisfied, he turned back to Survivor, who was staring at him with a smug smirk, waiting for a response. Hunter hummed thoughtfully, pulling the spear free of the lizard's corpse before turning around and walking towards the nearby pipe. I dunno. I thought you were a non-violent pacifist, or something. He barked a laugh as he heard Survivor sputtering behind him in shock, unable to get a full sentence out in response. He stopped at the pipe and turned around, seeing the white slug cat sulkily following Hunter to the pipe. He smirked as he gestured toward the entrance. After you, Mr. Dragon Slayer, sir. Survivor groaned with frustration before giggling. God, you're the worst. He said it jokingly as he went through the pipe, Hunter following close behind, wearing a big smile of his